Hi, everybody. Welcome along to episode 112 of Percussion Discussion. As always, I'm going to ask you to check out our social media. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and of course, our world famous YouTube channel, where you can find all of the conversations, past and present, where you'll find some video footage to go along with the audio. If you'd rather listen on the go, then all of our conversations are available in podcast form. You can find these. They're free to download from your favorite podcast providers. Please rate and review. It really helps other drummers find us and hopefully enjoy the show as much as you do. On to today's guest, an absolute powerhouse drummer. I've been lucky enough to catch this guy plenty of times over the last few years at gigs and drum festivals and clinics. And he's incredibly entertaining and a very skilled drummer. He's played for the likes of Tigertailz, Iron Maiden's Bruce Dickinson. He's a member of Sham 69 and, of course, a member of the band he's been with since the early 90s, Rachel Stamp. He's played for lots of other people, which we'll get into in the conversation. It gives me great pleasure to welcome the wonderful Mr. Robin Guy.
Robin, thank you so much for doing this, mate. It's kind of you.
I'm here. You're here. Let's go.
Yeah, and what a backdrop we've got with that beautiful pearl kit there. All lit up.
It's my little, well, I won't say my pride and joy. They're all my pride and joy. I got like a bunch of crazy kits that I've sort of personalized or customized. I'm not the sort of standard brown wood guy, you know. Oh, look at that lovely grain. That's for the people who can really play, you know, and the jazz dudes. I want a kit to look like it's landed from Mars, you know what I mean? And obviously I got my gold elephants. Everyone needs, you know, you got you know, the guys from, you know, Peter Criss or Eric Singer from Kiss, they got the huge panthers and gargoyles and dragons, and I'm sort of the budget version of that. I've got garden elephants that I sprayed gold.
But, you know, joking aside, you've got a great space there. We were just talking, and you said that's in your garden, your well, it's like rehearsal / recording room, everything, isn't it?
Quick little, I'll give you a mini tour. Okay, right. So, like, here you've got obviously the wonderful drums and that stuff. Over here, I've got a little Elise's practice kit. I've got my djembe down there.
Cool.
I've got what have I got? Like bass gear up there and you know, a bit of recording. I'm just starting to get into the old home recording malarkey. So any hints and tips for a Luddite like me who just about knows how to work a Hotmail account. Over here, you've got the all the tools, and then here's all my wonderful other kits. So if you can see that, that's all my penchant for zebra skin and all that stuff, and all the snare drums, and then obviously no studio is really complete without a rock and roll bar.
Perfect.
So there you go. So, you know, it's just an excuse to put my drum skins there, you know, and on the wall. And as you can see, it's my wonderful ladies, Jessica's band Bite Me. That's their huge backdrop, very unassuming, and they, you know, rehearsing here. And so it's a rock and roll space. You know, that's what I wanted. Being a drummer, every drummer I think can sympathize. You know, we're loud bastards, and you know, you need a den or a room or a shed or a pair of headphones or something, you know. Yeah. And I've spent a long time erecting this in one's garden, so you know, it's I can sort of play drums at 3 a.m. Without getting arrested.
That's the ultimate. It really is. And you just said, you know, you mentioned about the recording, doing the remote sessions and stuff. There's a market for that, and you know,
I'm hoping there is.
Jump on the bandwagon and get it. You might as well.
I mean, essentially, Maddie, I mean, I've been, you know, concentrated all my life just being behind the kit, making a lot of noise, making the kit sound good, establishing my own style, my interpretation of the song, you know, rhythm, keeping it in time, tasteful, musical, all that stuff. And obviously, you know, I've gone in many studios and recorded many tracks, songs, albums, sessions, or whatever. And I let the guy do all the magic, and I just concentrate on this. And of course, now that's all changed. Sadly, a lot of studios are defunct. They're not with us anymore and all that stuff. And obviously, a lot of people, you know, well, loads of people, you know, they're using internet, home recording, mics, interfaces, programs, and all that stuff. And I'm sort of usually about five years behind anyone else in technology. And I got sent a bunch of mics from Audio Technica, which was great. And you know, they've been gathering dust. And then suddenly, when I got this wonderful space, I was like, let's put them on there. And, and then a mate lent me a computer, and a mate sent me a second ed interface. And, it's all older tech.
Sure.
I'm not, not on the front line, but I figure I'll start off with, doing some cool, simple rock projects and punk stuff or whatever. People want to get in touch. And then, I remember this story. I'll tell you a quick story. A long time ago, probably before the internet, this band that I'd done a couple of sessions with playing live, and they contacted me and said, "Hey man, look, we'd love you to record our album." I think they kind of had a drummer at the time, but not so hot in the studio, good live, but like that whole click thing and the red light mentality. We go, they're like, "Look, we've got to kill it in a day and get the whole tracks." And they sort of, said, what would you charge? And I was thinking, I'm not really sure, what is it? 100 quid a track, 50 quid a track, 85 cents, euros, dollars, pounds, shillings. But anyway, I sort of said something. I phoned up a friend who was doing sessions for Jerry Halliwell and, proper sessions, in my opinion, not like rock and roll stuff that I was doing. I said, "What do you charge?" He said, "Well, 100 quid to 500 quid a track." And I thought, "Oh, wow." And so I emailed back and said, "Hey, look, I'll do it all for, let's say, 100 or quid a track." And they wanted 15 tracks. And they emailed back and said, "Well, that's actually like 2/3 of the budget for the album," because I think they had like $2.5 grand for the, budget thing, and that included the artwork and the presentation and everything. And they said, they were very humble. They said, "We'd love the thought of you having, us having you on our album. But, we I think they're expecting like, 100 quid and a packet of crisps or something,
Yeah.
But the sad thing was we never sort of got to negotiate and say, well, how much would you do it for?" So the long and the short, and this is a tip for you wannabe session people out there, it's much better to do an album for less money. And then you get on the credit.
Yeah.
Then I can say, "Hey, Maddie, here's an album I did the other day." Someone says, "What have you done recently?" "Hey, I've got something." Whereas I haven't got that thing to show you because I didn't. So if they'd have come back and said, "Look, that's the album budget, Robbie, half of it, but what would you do it for?" I'd have said, "Oh, well, if that's the album," I'd say, "Right, look, bung us X 100 quid and we'll do it. We'll have you buy me a bottle of Jack Daniels as we go, cup of tea or whatever, buy me some food." And then I would have had the album, and then I could have gone to the magazines, the press, the drum companies. "Hey, here's a hot, I've just done this." So I lost out on that. But of course, that was when you have to go to a studio or budgets and stuff. Nowadays, I remember this fantastic quote, and I can't remember who it was. It was a big session guy, one of the guys who've been up in the top 10 of every single album. There's a chance this guy's on it. And he said, "I got my home studio. I wake up in the morning, I have a cup of coffee, I check my PayPal, and then I go to the studio in my sort of bed gown and record a track." And I thought, that's brilliant. Wake up, grab a coffee, check your bank balance. If they've cleared it, you can go and record the thing. So anyway, long story short, I'm hoping to sort of, use this wonderful space, these fab mics, this wicked gear that I've got. And, feel free to bug me, get in touch and say, "Hey man, we want a demo, a session, a track, an album, whatever." And we'll talk.
Good. Well, that sounds, good luck with that. Because it's just a massive learning curve, isn't it? Let's be honest. It's, and I think it's one of those things. I've messed with it, and the more I did of it, the more I got into it. And
that's the thing.
You find your way around it, don't you?
The thing is, I'm not saying I'm a technophobe, but you're scared to do the first, and then you start learning, and it's like anything, whether it's whatever, is it pottery, bricklaying, cooking. The first time you turn the oven on or mix the batter, and what's going to happen? And you learn from your mistakes, and so that's why I need to just get stuck in and get rocking, because obviously. Waiting for a band to phone up from Seattle to say, "Robin, we're going to fly you out here and give you X thousand." It's not going to happen anymore.
No.
But it can, like I said, I'll do it in my underpants with a cup of coffee and PayPal.
Perfect. But look, the first time I think our paths crossed was, I can't remember the venue. Was it the NIA in Birmingham? And Stick It to MS. Sometime.
Stick It to MS.
It was the first. I think it was the first attempt, which I think they got, didn't they? And you were keeping good company now, because it had been like the drum fest, whatever the day before or the weekend before, and on that day, I remember there was Jason Bonhham there was Jojo Mayer, yourself, and I can't remember who else. I know John Thompson was.
Greg
Bissonette was there. Yeah.
Simon Phillips was headlining.
Yeah, I don't think he was there the day after. He wasn't there at the Stick It to MS, was he?
No. Jason Bittner, me and Jason did a kind of drum rock off thing on the big screen, which was great fun. And we sort of stay in touch on Facebook, and he's always touring. And good lad, Jace, and there was a whole plethora of people. And there was some sort of there was the guy, I can't remember his name. He did the whole nice, the jazz.
John Thompson.
He was comparing one.
John's been on the show, actually. He's been a guest last year or something. He's a great guy, great drummer as well.
Great. He did a lot of drum events at the time, and there was actually quite a lot of drum events going on back in that was 2009.
Yes.
And so, I mean, the thing is, I remember that because obviously, Stick It to MS was the whole big charity thing, getting the Guinness Book of Records, multiple sclerosis charity, trying to get 1,000 drummers to play time for 5 minutes. It was absolute cacophony. It was a wonderful experience. I think we broke the record, and then the Americans broke our record, and we broke it again. I think I ended up getting in the Guinness Book of Records twice because of Stick It to MS each time. It was fantastic. I got a little certificate. But the thing is, backtracking, I've got a hell of a story, if you want. It involves Jason Bonham and the Drum Fest.
Yes.
So basically, I think the Stick It to MS thing was on a Sunday. The Saturday was the Drum Fest, or was it Rhythm Fest?
I can't remember.
I'm going to get in trouble for remembering, but let's call it Drum and Rhythm Fest. And the day before was Guitar Fest. And so that would be Sunday, Saturday, Friday. So Thursday, unless it was Bank Holiday Monday, but anyway, Thursday or Friday, I was playing a gig with GMT, which is GMT, Guy McCoy Tormey, Robin Guy, John McCoy, Bernie Tormey. Yeah. Bernie Tormey and John McCoy played bass and guitar for Gillan.
Yes.
Ian Gillan, Deep Purple. Bernie's played with Dee Snider from Twisted Sister. He replaced Randy Rhoads when Randy sadly died in, was it 82, with Ozzy Osbourne.
Yeah.
John McCoy's a hell of a bass player. He's played with Stuart Copeland. He's done everything. And so we had this sort of like super group-ish power trio, and we'd do classic rock, and we'd have our own songs. Anyway, we had a gig in Sheffield, and Craig Glover had contacted me and said, look, the normal compare for Guitar Fest couldn't make it that year. And so he said, we need someone with the gift of the gab who can entertain the masses. And, we thought of you. And I thought, brilliant. I know little to nothing about guitars. I've worked with quite a few guitarists. Yeah. And they said, it was like, we'll bung you 50 quid in a hotel room, and I went, brilliant, done, I'm your man. So I got, and this is the key thing, I got Bernie and John and the guys on GMT. We did the gig in the day before in Sheffield, and then they dropped me back en route at the NEC, NIA, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And they offloaded my drum kit. Now, I hadn't really thought this through because I hadn't worked out how I was going to get back from Birmingham with my drum kit. But I guess they didn't want to take the drums back to where Bernie lived in Maidstone. So I ended up dropping all my drum kit, and I grabbed my sweaty stage gear and my hold all, my touring thing. And then I got out, and literally Craig Glover, who was the brains behind the outfit, he met me and said, right, here's your rapper's mic. You're on stage in 50 minutes, if half an hour, go and interview the first guy. And it was, again, like Rhythm Fest. It was a hell of a lineup. Headlining was Yngwie Malmsteen. Right. Love him or hate him. I got on really well with him. And I'll tell you, that's a funny little thing. But there was Jennifer Batten, who'd played with Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
Who was, weirdly, there was the bass player of Living Colour. At a guitar shop, but he had so many pedals. It was like a New York skyline. His pedal was like 6 foot wide.
Is that Doug Wimbish? Is it Doug Wimbish, the bass player?
It might have been. Yeah. It was a heavyweight player, well respected on the scene. There was I've literally gone blank here. He sung for Deep Purple and plays bass. Jeff Hughes, Glenn Hughes.
Glenn Hughes, yeah.
Glenn Hughes was on it, but unlike Yngwie and Jennifer Batten, who was playing with backing tapes, Glenn had the whole blooming rock band.
Amazing.
So he brought his, and so a hell of a lineup. Anyway, so I literally was sort of like Googling these guys' names, and I just figured I'll just put together a real quick cartoon big questions, like biggest crowd, most amount of records sold, craziest person you worked with, and 6 bullet points. And anyway, I grabbed the person that did the thing, crowd went off, he did his thing, and the next thing I'm like, quick, it's the guy from Living Colour. Then it's Jennifer Batten. I wasn't freaked out, but it's like, shit, this is a girl from Michael Jackson. But I gave them all a good send off, and I'd heard stories that Glenn Hughes a bit of a could be a bit of a diva or whatever. And I just went in and said, right, I'm going to appeal to his ego. I said, Glenn, I've got some questions. Biggest crowd. He's like, that would be Woodstock, 250,000 people, all that. And I said, but when they found out I was playing, they all bum rushed the show, and I loved it. So I bigged it all up, made everyone laugh. And then it was the time to knock on Yngwie's door, and it was like the big dark lord himself. And I'd written this sort of crazy thing like the whatever, some crazy thing like intro. And basically I said, Yngwie, I'm here to do your intro. He's like, all right. I said, I've written this thing. And he goes, show me what you got. And I did the whole, and it's a Slayer from Stockholm, and all that stuff. Give it up for Yngwie. And he just went, I like it. And we fist bumped, and that was it. He was like, he was my man after that. So he rocked the show.
Shirt open down to his waist, of course.
Hey?
Shirt open down to his waist.
Yeah, that's right. And the first thing he did when he ran on, he sort of did this to the lighting guy, because there was these park hands up his face. I was thinking, oh, there you go. That's the side people don't like. But he was my homie for the time being. Anyway, so that night, it went off well. And then that night was the all the guitar heads, all the drum dudes from the next day to play, and they were in a hotel. So there was Craig Blundell was a house guy on the kit. Bissonette was there, and Jojo, and I was there with the guys from Marshall, because they were the ones that booked me for the thing. Yeah. And I heard that Jason Bittner wasn't going to make it. So I was like, what song's he playing? They said Pretty Woman. I think that's easy. I think I could do that, as long as it's not some crazy prog rock song. So, of course, but I never got called up. So by this time, I'm about 5 pints in on the Marshall table, having a great time. And it was like a scene out of Morecambe and Wise, where Eric Morecambe at the end walks her along the back. I went to the loo, came out with 2 pints, and they went, Robin Guy. And I'm like, I walked along the back, went, shit, I've got to go and play. And I walked past Craig Blundell, who was his kit, and he just said to me, go and smash the living hell out of it. Hit everything as fast as you can. I was like, right, boss, Pretty Woman, that. So I did that, and then went to bed, crashed out, hotel, breakfast in the morning. I was like, oh, there's Greg Bissonette. This is going to be great. I really hope one day I can get on the festival. I went to the festival for free, and, as part of my payment, if you will. And the first thing happened was that Craig Glover was going up to me with a worried look on his face. But Robin, Jason Bonham, who was second under Simon Phillips, second from the top. Jason Bonham can't get his electronic gates to his mansion open.
I remember this story, yeah. I remember
for
it.
some reason. I'm not going to say if it's true or not, and can you play? And I was like, holy smokes, I've got my drum kit here. Which is the whole thing about the GMT gig. I was like, that's amazing. So I had my head mic, I had my gear, I had my bandana, my stage shorts, all smelling of sweat. And I said, the only thing I had my iPod, because I was, and I had all my clinic tracks on. So I was like, this is amazing. I said to Craig, look, the only thing I haven't got is a pair of headphones. He said, right, jump in the car. We went straight to a PMT, professional music technology, and he walked in, he owns the joint, and he went, right, give me the best headphones you've got. And the geezer on the counter's like, there you go, grabbed them and went back, and I loaded my kit up on my own, set it all up, and the guys I ran around to the Sabian booth. I was like, guys, I'm on main stage representing, and Jay Lewington and the guys were super cool, and they like Christian Koch, they were grabbing the Sabian banners off their stand, putting them behind me. The Pearl rep had just gone, and I was like, dude, I'm repping Pearl on the main stage, and it was all crazy. And then and of course, no one knew Jason Bonham couldn't do it. So it was like the worst intro I'd ever had. It was like, ladies and gentlemen, Jason Bonham can't make it, but we've got Robin Guy. And it was like, the tumbleweeds. And so everyone's there with sort of like, Led Zeppelin faded T-shirts, big fans of his dad and whatnot. And I'm like, hey up, I thought, like, I just got to kill it. I said, grabbed the mic and went, bad news about Jason Bonham. He can't make it. Good news is I'm here to rock. Let's go. Headphones on, started with a drum solo. And by the end of the hour or whatever it was, like standing ovation. People come down the front and signing autographs. Everyone loved it. And the queue was so blooming long for signing and hanging out. People with their dads and kids and mums that they asked me to take the crowd outside because it was holding up Simon Phillips. Simon Phillips was watching the clinic, which was, I found out later. So by the time I'd finished signing, which was another hour, he'd done his clinic. And when I came into the auditorium, he came off stage and we met and he went, "Nice clinic, let me give you a beer." Went straight in Simon Phillips's dressing room, him, his roadie, and me, and a fridge. And we just had a beer. It's just like chilling out. I was like, unbelievable. And then the next, then after that, it was like press and drum coverage, and Robin saves the show, and it was a fantastic, good year. And then of course the next day is bloody Stick It to MS. Yeah. So I've got my drums for that. So you couldn't put more in by day. So that was like 4 days of absolute rock and roll, ending with Guinness Book of Records and absolute mega fun. Doing a drum off with Jason Bittner. And so anyway, that was a massive long answer to your short question, but what a day, 2009, and I just wish there were more kind of drum events like that, whether it's charity or drum clinics, because they're super fun. They really are amazing. Sadly, it's kind of let down by the financial aspect, because the hire of the venue is so high, and then they have to charge pitches so high. And so if you're doing a pitch, it's like, "Hey, Matty, just for your 10 foot by 6 foot is $4,000. You go, "Man, I can't do that." The small drum companies can't do it. The big ones, you've got, Mapex and your Pearl and Yamaha, they can do it. But even they're sort of pulling out. And once you've got people like that pulling out, it's kind of the death of, the thing.
But it was a great event, and as you said, it was all to your fortune. I mean, I just want to know, when did you go and put the fuses back in Jason's gate again? Was that on the Tuesday?
Well, there was a lot of talk about, maybe the thing is, after I'd done the whole thing, I came back to the hotel and I bumped into Carmine Apiece.
Oh, yes, he's been on.
Another guy who was he was in the middle, and I said, "Carmine, he's a Sabian dude," and we high five. And I quickly filled him in, and he went, and he was very skeptical about Mr. Bonham. He's like, sounds like he was snowed in, if you know what I mean, because, what can you say? Carmine's words, not mine. But, he was like, "Look, dude, if my gate's stuck, I think I'd have, quickly phoned." Is he with Ludwig?
I think so, yeah. I think so.
So he's like, a big company. He was like, I would have phoned them instantly and said, "Get me a kit to that venue. I'm going to jump these freaking gates and get a cab there." There's always a way to do an event, isn't there? Well, so anyway, whatever. Who knows? I've got the confirmation on that, but I lucked out and I got the trophy.
Took it and ran with it, as they say. But so that was the first time our paths crossed, and then the second time was I was hosting an event it was a 70s event in Rill in the events arena. I can't remember how long ago it was. And you were playing with Eric Faulkner, obviously guitarist of Bay City Roller fame. And
Eric Bay City Rollers is the tasteful title.
There we go. I'd hired the backline kit in for that one because they said, "Have you got some?" And I said, yeah, fine, no problem. And I remember there was a Steve Gadd signature snare, and you looked out and you went, "Yeah, I'll use that. I won't use mine." But I've got
really,
and I've got an apology to make, because while you were playing your solo, which was mighty impressive, the stool gave way. The stool that I'd put in, which was a bit substandard, and you shrank about 8 inches halfway through the solo. The stool dropped, and I remember thinking, "Oh no." So that was. Do you remember it? Maybe not.
I don't. I'm just thinking about the stool incident. I think I'd have remembered it a lot more if it had poked through the stool. I've had that. I've had a few accidents on stage where stools falling off the back of rides. I poked a stick in my eye in the States and went to hospital and then got stitches and continued to tour. Oh God, but if I chose the Gadd snare, I'd like to congratulate myself on making a good choice. Thank you for providing it. The thing is it's like, when you play drums with a few bands, that I've played drums with a few bands, word spreads that someone in some band might be playing for another band later on, and they call you, and so I was actually playing with this with a punk band called The Business in 2004, 2006, And the original bass player is a guy called Mark Brennan. And I never played with him, but he has a record label. Mm-hmm. And he knew what I'd done with the business and kicked him up a notch with the drumming and whatnot, blah, blah, blah. And so he knew me as a sort of solid player or geezer or whatever. And he contacted me because Eric Faulkner was signed to his record label. And so, and Eric, the thing about Eric, he wanted a live band. He wanted it to be like, you know, poppy and punky, a little bit of a punk rock, not punk per se, but, you know, it's sort of glammy, punky, rocky.
Bit of attitude. Yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, give it a bit of attitude. And he wanted a live rock band. And Les McKeown was doing Les McKeown's legendary Bay City Rollers. Yeah. And that was much more of a sort of production, I won't say cabaret, but, you know, uniforms, and everyone was tight on it. And we were this blazing rock band with drum solos and fiddle solos. And it was a bit more up my street. And so, again, I got that through playing in a punk band called The Business, you know, through Mark Brennan being the record label to Eric. And Eric contacted him and said, look, do you know any drummers, you know? And he said, look, call this guy, you know. And so that's how that happened. I mean, Eric was, you know, friends with Dee Dee Ramone back in the day. And, you know, so there was that punky thing we had going on. And it was a great little live band. I mean, you know, obviously 90% of the audience was sort of, you know, tartan wielding Germans. You know, we'd go and play arenas out in Germany, for God's sake. You know, I remember we played an ice rink in Switzerland, and we're on a stage. We're getting introduced by the town mayor, who's got more bling than Mr. T. And as soon as he announced us, the whole place, the rink, filled up with like everyone in fancy dresses, people like with like, you know, goofy onesies skating around, and we're going shang-a-lang Saturday night, you know. Unbelievable.
So you saying the ice rink wasn't covered over? They were skating.
It was an ice rink. So there was like mass chaos there, and then there was the sides because it was a full-on Olympic, you know, ice rink, and everyone was up there with their scarves and that, you know. And it was, and again, like I said, with the tie-in with all the different bands, there was a bass player. It was a three-piece. It was me and Eric, and there was a bass player. He lasted about half a gig because he thought he was in Alice Cooper's band, and he ran across the stage and sort of like his lead plugged out, came out, and he's just carried on. He's completely oblivious to the band, the songs. And so, and Eric's like, look, we need to get someone solid. Do you know anyone who can sing as well? And of course, my man, David Ryder Prangley, who's a front man, bass player, singer, songwriter, of Rachel Stamp.
Yes.
You know, which obviously I've gone back in the day, you know, my main band, you know, we're doing a show coming up. You know, we do these shows every now and again. It's a big event, real special, and it's cool. And so I was like, David, look, and he was playing bass with T-Ecstasy. So it's another kind of thing, keeping a hand in.
Well, they were on the same bill. I think they were they opened up that day, I think.
Well, this is completely possible. This is the music business. This is what I love about the music business. It's like, you were there, wait a minute, you know. And so I David was a perfect fit because he was a front man. He's got the high voice that, you know, he can harmonize. He can sing a lead vocal. He's got the bass. And then along came Phil Hendricks, who was a singer, frontman, guitarist of the Stiffs, which were like a sort of 80s pop punk, like kind of Blondie type thing. So you had like three frontmen, or four if you include me at the back. So it was a really cool band, you know. And of course, and it's just weird because I've played for a million bands, but there's always two bands, if I mention, that everyone guaranteed to know. And you'd think it would be like the biggest, like Bruce Dickinson from Iron Maiden. No, Sham 69, Bay City Rollers. Yeah. Everyone in the world, and I'm talking not just rock fans or punk bands, like, you know, grannies next door. Oh, you know, Bay City Rollers. People, because of course, you know, in the late 70s and 80s, obviously Sham were on top of the pops, and you know, big news and punk stuff. But the Bay City Rollers were like, you know, the next, whatever, Beatles size, weren't they? You know, I mean, Eric would do a gig in Germany. We'd do lots of stuff out there. And we'd come back to the hotel, and the promoter would be like, oh, it's really nice to see Eric here. Are you having a cup of tea or coffee? You know, and I said, well, what do you mean? It's just sitting in the foyer. He goes, well, back in the day, there would be a riot. You know, if one of the Bay City Rollers is having a cup of something in the foyer, it'd literally be an absolute riot, and the police and that. And of course, you think, blimey, you know, this is old geezer is telling us jokes backstage. And you realize you're tapping into, you know, a part of that guy's life that they actually were just ridiculous legends, you know.
Just incredible.
It's weird. And I love playing for different people because you have to chop and change. You know, keep your own mindset. I'm still, you know, Robin Guy doing my thing, but I'm also got to get, you know, represent their mindset for what they want. Whether it's, you know, Martin Gregg, who wants a very kind of subdued thing, black t-shirts, no showing off, just, you know, doing his thing. We ended up supporting Muse at Wembley Arena, or Lars Frederiksen from Rancid, who, you know, wants sort of spit and sawdust, solid drums, but fast and energetic. Or, you know, like I said, Eric or Jimmy Percy, Sham 69. Or, you know, when you're sort of sessioning, you know, it's you really start improving because you have to play to other people. You know, if you're playing a rockabilly band, you know, you got their sense and sensibility, and you're going to play in a metal band completely different, you know, and it does wonders for your playing. I mean, when I quit Rachel Stamp back in 2002, the first sort of proper gig I got professionally was with All About Eve.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And of course, they were like, you know, huge back in the day, Top of the Pops, headlining Glastonbury or whatever, you know, and they were, you know, everyone thinks they're this hippie folk band. And to this day, they're the most rock and roll band I've ever worked with. They're just absolutely cool. They saved not my career. You know, I left a band. It was a big thing. I was a bit down in the dumps. And they proper, like, we kicked it up. We did a huge UK tour, and they were just lovely people to work with, super fun. I got the audition, and the first thing they said is, right, Robin, lager or cider? And I thought, shit, is this part of the audition?
Tell me, Robin, who did you replace for? Who was the drummer before you in All About Eve?
Yeah, I'll be honest, I don't really know. We could find out, but sure, there's people out there will know. But the weird, again, one of those weird, wonderful things. The guy that was like not up against me, but like the last two, he was the guy who was playing for Martin Gregg, and I ended up getting that later. Filling in. Their drummer was booked in some Irish festival, and suddenly Kelly Osbourne cancelled Tea in the Park in Scotland. And so 2 days notice, they were like, or a week notice, Kelly Osbourne's pulled out, you're next on the list. Martin Gregg, you're on. They're like, shit, our drummer's in Ireland. And then so the bass player, a girl called Charlie Beddoes, she recommended me, and this is what I will say to everyone out there, is I failed an audition with Charlie in her band called No Santa.
Okay.
It's a great band, No Santa. So I auditioned for them as a 3-piece, and I didn't get the gig. And a lot of people would be like, oh no, you know, going downhill, my playing's no good, I'm depressed, blah, 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 blah. And, you know, I carried on doing whatever I was doing. And a few years or whatever it was later, Charlie got in Martin Gregg's band, solo band, and she was like, right, call Robin. And so by failing a gig back then, ended up me supporting Muse at Wembley Arena.
Isn't it amazing how it happens, you know?
Don't worry about failing, kids. Well, so, I mean, this is what I love, you know, just talking about the whole thing, because it's such a weird, you know, journey. You know, like, you end up in a studio with one thing for a session, and in walks Dave Courtney, the gangster, and you end up, you know, being invited to his book signing and being a pal of his, and, you know, and being on just ended up with Lars Frederiksen from Rancid, and the whole I did a thing with a guy called Alex Kane, who his project was Anti-Product, and me and Chris Dale, who was the bass player of the Bruce Dickinson band, and we did the thing together. So Alex saw me and Chris play, we supported him, and he's like, I know, I like you cats, you're good, I need to do an album, right, come and record it. And so we, you know, did 2 days rehearsal and recorded the entire album in 15 hours, fueled on Diet Coke and packets of crisps. And then Alex was recording with Bernie Tormey, and he did a project with Danny McCormack from the Wild Hearts, and he's like, Robin, I need you. So me and Alex and Danny went down to Bernie's studio, and then we did the session with Alex and Danny, and then Bernie saw me play and went, hey, you know, once those guys are gone, can you stay? I've got this thing with John McCoy. And then you ended up being in GMT, and then we formed the band to play Clive Aid, which is Clive Burr from Iron Maiden, one of my heroes, and I got to interview him at Clive Aid playing with Bernie. I mean, the whole thing is just, it sounds like I'm name dropping, which I am, but not because of ego, or it's just because it's such a crazy story. And I love it how it entwines, you know what I mean?
Honestly, you've had an incredible career and you still do. But there's one thing I want to talk about, and obviously you're known for playing with incredible energy. You know, I've seen you several times, and it blows my mind how much you put into this. Now, it's no secret that you're having pretty intensive chemo, you know, from time to time. I don't know how regularly it is, but
every other week, man.
That's you know, I mean, I was watching some footage from Sham 69, and the energy you put in. How the hell do you? I mean, it must knock the crap out of you, to go and do that after chemo. How? Tell us about it. I mean, it's important to know this kind of thing, I think.
It's no joke. I mean, it's the most hellish thing on earth. You wouldn't wish it on, you know, your darkest enemy. I mean, essentially, I'll give you the like, it's like if you've never been to the moon, we'll never know what it's like being on the moon, right? And if you've never had chemo, you'll never know. You think, oh, it's probably a bit gnarly. I'll give you the formula in human terms for people out there that are chemo. It's basically like 60% being injected with 60% food poisoning, which most people have had food poisoning. It's absolute, turns you into that. And 40% of the worst heartbreak you've ever experienced. So if you mix that around in a warm cauldron and inject it in a drip for 4 hours, I mean, you come out of there, you're bleary-eyed, and you're like, absolutely, you know, you go home and then you're in bed. And it basically saps your soul, it saps your vibe, and it takes, you know, everything is like a syringe taking every essence out of you that is anything good, which is, you know, it's horrendous. Obviously, someone like me, I like to think I'm a active and bubbly character. And you're just lying there going, and you can't do anything. It's like trying to escape your shadow in the desert. You can't. You know, like what I'm saying is, like, if you bash a hammer on your knee, you're going to go all manner of swear words, and you're going to go, shit, my knee hurts. But your knee hurts. It's not like you've got a headache or your hands. You can still type on a computer. You know, your foot's in plaster. But chemo, it's your entire body. You can't escape it. It's you know, you can't disenfranchise it, whatever the word is, from your mind. You're drowned in it. So you literally have to sit it out, and you do that literally by just pulling the duvet over and just, you know, watching a bit of TV or something. I mean, it's crazy. So, like, you know, a few days you're in bed and you just about get enough energy to make a cup of tea in the kitchen, and you come back, and then after the 4th day you can walk to the end of the garden and then go and make a cup of tea. Fifth day I'm about 70% better. 6th day, 90% better, and then a week later, I'm kind of, well, what am I? You know, and of course, the problem is, I've got like an 8-day fortnight, whereas you've got 14 days in your fortnight.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I've got, like, because of you can't just go out and rock on a kit or build things or run marathons or do whatever you got to do. So it shortens the amount of time you've got to do stuff. So when I finally get back to being me, I'm like, I've got this list of like 45 things to do. I'm like, right, got to do this, learn this track, do that, set up that, rebuild that, spray, you know, build some shelves in my studio, go and learn, you know, email this, do 4 sets of laundry, go to shopping, talk to Matty, you know, and it totally makes you like respect your, you know, time and getting on stuff, and you kind of, you know, you sort of minimize the bullshit in life. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Because I think people with nothing wrong with them or nothing going on, you know, they're just, I'm generalizing here, but, you know, they're busy putting pictures of their sandwich on Instagram or whatever, you know, or doing the 40th selfie this month, you know. And I'm just like, look, I'm not knocking each to their own, but, you know, when you're approaching your twilight years, and you're going to look back and go, wow, I successfully uploaded 3,500 selfies, and, you know, 25,000 pictures of my soup, you know. I kind of like, you know, I like to do stuff that's a bit more of substance, going, I'm actually doing this, check it out, come and help, come and do this, get amongst it, whether it's a gig or you know, anything like that. And you know, each to their own, but I don't get bored. There's too much going on. So even with the whole chemo, which is effectively like a giant boot on your head going, no, you can't, you know, you're coming out the lake, and it's like, no, you're like, yeah, but I want to, no. And even though that's there, you just kind of try to, you know, make everything kind of count. Obviously, physically, you know, you can do stuff and you can't do stuff, and it's very frustrating if we've got like say a Sham 69 gig comes in, and I'm like, ah, man, that looks like it's going to be right in the middle of my chemo. It's very frustrating. So I can either move the chemo a couple of days and do it, or if it's no way I can move it, or it's like a important scan you've got to have, then, you know, I've got, you know, I've got Spike Smith. He's a good buddy of mine.
Yeah, good guy.
Great drummer, nice geezer, and he knows all the punk stuff in and out. So he just steps in seamlessly and rocks the house. And, you know, then I sit in bed on chemo watching him on YouTube playing, you know, playing Borstal Breakout or whatever. But, you know, again, I think the more you go through life, the older you get, the more shit you have to deal with and all that stuff. You kind of just realize it's kind of part of it. There's not one person that both of us don't know that isn't going through something themselves, or their nearest and dearest isn't going through something, you know, bad. So everyone's got some shit, whether it's, you know, the whole pandemic, depression, or it's like, what's the world going to with the heads of the departments in this country, or America, Russian wars, government, petrol prices, things working, you know, this is crazy times. And I think it affects a lot of, everyone's got that, you know, on a knife edge of not depression, but like, you know, money's going, bills are going up and the money's going down, and the venues are closing, and, you know, everything's downloadable for free. And I mean, you know, it's absolutely mental. And my take on it is just like, well, you can't get down about it. It's a bit like that line that Morgan Freeman says in Shawshank Redemption. It's like, and it's brilliant. It's like, you know, get busy living or get busy dying, you know. And when you have a horrendous diagnosis that I had, you know, 4 years ago, you got bowel cancer, you know, and you've got to go through chemo and have operations and shit, you know, you can go downhill pretty quick mentally. And, you know, it's tough to deal with, but you just got to keep going, you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And you do it.
The drums and all the people around me, you know, help, and you know, and that's all you got to do is look at what you've got and just go for it. And that's why I kick ass so hard with Sham or Rachel Stamp or whatever I'm doing, because that's all you got, really, you know, at the end of the day, you know. And I want to exhaust myself on stage, so I come off stage going, that's it. I can't move now. I've given everything to that show, the audience, the blood, the sweat, the tears, the crowd. That's my job. My job isn't getting wankered and wasted after it on the free beer. That's easy. I can do that at home. You know, so that's my thing, you know, just put everything into the show, everything into your dreams, and then you can, and you too can have a light up drum kit with a golden elephant.
But, you know, you do it in what you do it in not in a self-pitying way at all. You get on with your business, you know. You don't make a secret of it. You just get on and do it. And I tell you what, you know, I take my hat off to you if I was wearing one, obviously, but I'm not. But you get what I'm saying, you know.
Yeah, no, I mean, I get it. It's impossible for people like yourself to, you know, like, it's like if someone, you know, I'm not blaming things like school, but school don't tell you how to deal with, you know, your pet dying, your mum and dad dying, your cousin dying, you know. And so if something like that happens, as a friend to someone who's, say, gone through a death, what the hell could you do? Hey, man, sorry for your loss. Condolences. They're just words. And so I understand how it is for people to come to me and go, hey, man, you know, no one knows what to say. And there is nothing to say. You just got to keep cracking on, doing your thing. And, you know, all the support I know is there. The love is there. It's insane. Everyone's, you know, rooting and that. But, you know, obviously, at the end of the day, it does come down to me, myself, and I, you know, and it is obviously confusing for a lot of people where they see me say, oh, doing a post on, say, Facebook about chemo, or picture of me having a scan. And they go, okay, that's serious, like that's hospital stuff. And then a week later, I'm like, you know, playing, headlining Rebellion of, you know, 6,000 rockers with Sham, or doing a crazy sold out show with Rachel Stamp, or, you know, and they go, well, how is this possible? Because people like to think, put you in a box. You're either, you know, this dead and buried invalid, or you're this rock and roll maniac. And of course, you know, I'm neither or both or whatever, you know, and I'm just me. And you know, another quote, I can't remember, I think probably Ozzy Osbourne is like, you know, how do you deal with life? And it's like, it's a roller coaster. When it goes up, you go up with it. And when it goes down, you go down with it. And then you go up, and life is like that. It's not like, you know, and I think that's it. good days, bad days, and that, but on the whole, I just try to keep the engine stoked with coal, and just realize there's more to it than becoming this Robin chemo thing. That's part of it, but there's always more. If you're living your life right, there's always more good than bad. Yeah. But if you're living life, there's always going to be bad.
Yeah.
Unless you're one of these people who sweep stuff under the carpet. No, that doesn't. You got to bite down hard onto it and just go for it, really. And if you can think, I'm not going to stand here shouting quotes, but like people say, like, if you can think it and you can dream it, then you can do it. I mean, this studio was a wasteland at the back of the garden at one point, and then I got all the brambles out and I cut down a couple of stumps here and there, and got ripped off by a builder, obviously. And here we are doing a podcast in this amazing thing that I've got.
Incredible. I tell you what, mate, you're an inspiring character. You really are. You've done some incredible gigs and still and still continue to do so, and you're not letting up. The energy's there, and it's great to see.
The thing is, Matty, when you do stuff like this, well, I don't want to say session. My quote about sessioning bands, whatever, people either think you play in a band or you're a session player. And my take on that is, I'm a band player that does sessions, but I'm a session player that plays in bands.
Yeah.
Same thing. Whether it's like wearing the right gear for 1 week on tour with XYZ band, so that you don't look like the session guy. That's always been my MO. My job is to basically look like I'm in part of the band. So when I was doing the Eric Faulkner thing, you wouldn't be like, oh, that guy looks like he's a hired gun. No, you're looking like a band. And with Sham, obviously I'm, a bit younger than those guys, but, all about, you wear, whether it's clothes or whether it's style or the drums or the, and you've got to be flexible. And so, and that teaches you a hell of a lot about, blending in with people. But, I always think it's like, you're not just a band player, you're not just a session player. It's kind of this mash, you know what I mean?
Incredible. Just
and you never know when the phone is very exciting, because every time my phone goes off, it could be someone's broken his leg, we need you to learn a set, and then your life changes. 2 days later you're like I said, playing Tea in the Park with Martin Gweck and getting the gig, or or someone might WhatsApp you, Facebook you, oh, I've heard of you, can you do this folk project? Yeah. And obviously if the phone doesn't ring, then it's it's the flip side of that you've got to be able to deal with. But it is very exciting, and I love that part of it. It's like, oh, there's a message here, what's it gonna be?
Yeah. So were you like that when you got my message, or was it just like, oh shit?
I was like, real? Let's go.
There's one thing that we have to talk about before we go, and you've been sharing it on Facebook recently, and that's the Faith No More thing on Top of the Pops, because I've had so much joy from watching that recently.
Yeah.
You know what? And I'd even forgotten about it. I probably even watched it live, and then you just, as you do, you forget stuff. Just explain the situation for anybody who's watching or listening who doesn't understand what we're talking about.
Well, again, I mean, like even just you mentioning that, I mean, Faith No More probably, in the 90s were like basically the most credible metal band ever. They were just brilliant. And just you saying, hey, you play with these guys. I'm like, oh, what did I? Amazing. But again, this is the whole thing about, the music business. People think that you fill an application in and you get the gig with Iron Maiden or, whatever. And it's never like that. It's always people from da-da-da. And that's why you've got, I call it the people game. You've got to get on with people, because people still, despite current technologies, people still run the world. And if you can't get on with people, you're not going to survive, and I think a lot of people these days, young kids these days, they think it's all about an app or about, their phone, and you don't have to meet anyone anymore. It's just here. Whereas in our day, you about chatting to them down the pub and getting the gig. So anyway, I had being a drummer back in the day, I had a van, a Marina van or Astra van or whatever. And And a lot of people would be like, hey, man, can you just drop my gear off and blah, blah, blah. We'll bung you 50 quid. So I became this sort of little helping out roadie guy for a band. And then the bass player of that band was doing like a kind of comedy club stand-up routine where it's like a musical band in the background. And the character, a bit like a kind of Alan Partridge type guy, his stage name was Lenny Beige, and he was this sort of, slapstick guy, and he'd do songs, and he would do it in I can't remember the venue, but it was like a speakeasy club in Soho under where Cats was. So it's like middle of Soho, little theatre, and it was the kind of place where you'd find like Suggs from Madness, a couple of Page Street Girls, whoever's in the Sun, the Daily Mirror, that with EastEnders, that kind of level of fame, if you will. And then everyone would go to this comedy thing and see this guy. And I was basically the one roadie. I'd set up the back line and hang out, and anything going wrong, I'd give them waters and that. And they'd bung me 50 quid and I'd take the gear back, and essentially the band were the Robbie Williams backing band.
Oh, right, okay.
So there's a guy called Hugo on drums, and he was actually also playing in a band called Honeycrack, which is CJ from the Wild Hearts.
Oh, right, I remember. Yeah. I remember it.
Again, everything all filters into stuff. So I was like, you're Hugo. I've seen you in Kerrang, And he was a nice guy, and he was the drummer. Phil Eisler, who was the bass player for Robbie Williams. Guy Chambers, the guy who wrote Angels, on keys. So I was going around Guy Chambers' house, gold disc galore, and I'd load up his keyboards. I'd take the gear to the thing. And there was another real big session drummer as well, and he threw up in my car. All the names I've forgotten. Anyway, so
he's probably quite grateful that you've forgotten.
So I took it upon me after sort of weeks of doing this. I'd learn the set, and one time Hugo couldn't do it, and I went, I know the set, so I got to be the drummer for the night. So again, that was another thing. But and then he got a pilot for TV that we went on, and he didn't get the pilot, so he didn't become Alan Partridge or Harry Entwistle. You know what I mean? Harry, whatever. Anyway, Phil Eisler's bass broke, the amp, and he said, dude, can you just get this fixed? Here's 50 quid, take it down to Ritz Studios in Putney or Fulham and drop it off, mate. And I went, yeah, no problem, And I took it down there, and I saw this Ritz Studios, and there was a dozen doors. There was a workshop, and I thought, well, I'm sure it's in there, but I'll just check this door up here. There's some stairs, one door. So I walked up the door, and on the door it said the session connection.
Oh yeah, right. Okay, I'm with you now. I
put 1 and 1 together and got 11. I went, the session connection. That sounds like where session players are born, So, and underneath that it said, do not enter unless prior, you got a slot, you got an interview. And of course, me being like I said about chase your dreams, I just went, fuck that, took a deep breath and kind of knocked and walked in. And it was this huge long room. There were 3 desks, one there, and one right at the end. There were 3 girls, and I had pink hair at the time. And I just heard, as soon as I was expecting to be like, open the door, get out, and they just said, oh, I like your hair. And I went, I'm in. And I just walked straight up to the main desk, and I went, I just said, look, you're the session connection. I guess your session agency. So she said, that's correct. I said, right, I am a drummer, and I will do anything and everything that all of your drummers on your books won't do. Give me the crazy shit. I will do, and that was my gambit. I just said, look, give me anything that you don't think that, Mr. Jazz Hands over there or Mr. Perfection Prog Rock over there, all the people who can really play what I think session players are, not like me. And I was like, right, give me the shit. I'll do the jumping around in a turkey costume. I don't mind. And she loved that. They loved it so much. They went, oh, and my business card was a picture of me doing that and a whole box of broken sticks, and my T-shirt said technical expert. So I gave them the card, and they just loved it. Everything about it, they're pissing themselves laughing. And I said, yeah, no worries, piss off, I don't know. Went and got the bass fixed, got my 50 quid and came home. 2 weeks later, or whatever it was, a couple of months later, the phone rings. Back in the landline days, I don't even think there was a mobile phone invented then. And so this was 1996. And the phone rings. It goes, hello, Robin, it's Tina from the Session Connection. I'm like, oh, hello. She goes, you wanted something crazy. Well, I've got something crazy for you. And I went, okay. And in my mind, I'm thinking it's going to be jumping around in the back of back of Top of the Pops, with Supergrass playing, and I'll be dressed as a chicken, like, you know, just jumping. And I thought, no worries, I'll take it. I'll take my crazy business cards and I'll just flood Top of the Pops with them, you know. And she goes, are you ready for it? It's Top of the Pops. It's Faith No More. You know, my jaw, sorry, what, no more? And I just went, yes. You know, are you interested? Yes. And literally, you know, 2 days later, you know, Knight Rider turns up at my door with this full-on, you know, black helmet, and, you know, here's the package. I was like, brilliant. Never been couriered, anything like that. Ripped it open. It's Ashes to Ashes. I put it in a CD and did a little quiet prayer to, like, please let it not be some crazy, complicated, odd time signature, whatnot. Let it just be a bombastic rock piece. And of course, it's a I was like, bom, bom, bat, bom, bom, bat. And I was like, brilliant. So that was it. And then, of course, you know, the record company got in touch and was like, you got to wear a suit. I didn't have a suit, so I went to Oxfam and bought, you know, I could hire a suit for 60, 70 quid or go and buy one from Oxfam for £12.95. So I went and bought my suit. And then nearer the day, I heard on the day that I heard about this mask. And of course, the reason why I got the gig was because Mike Puffy Borden, you know, he was playing with Ozzy at the time.
Yeah.
And his wife was giving birth. So he was proper out of the, and of course, suddenly, you know, England calls, you know, Great Britain calls and goes, hey, you charted, you know, come and perform on Top of the Pops. And of course, they're like, well, we're a man down. So and this is the quote from Billy Gould, the bass player who he runs the show. Is like, we just want some monkey at the back to wave their sticks around, you know, because I was like complaining about this mask, going, oh, guys, do I really need to wear this? You know, because the eyes were like there. I couldn't see anything. Proper, you know, pushing my face there. I know I shouldn't complain because I'm going to get to be on Top of the Pops in a mask with Top of the Pop, Faith No More. But, you know, we've done 6 rehearsals. We're hanging out. We're having sandwiches, drinking cans of Coke. Getting on, you know, I was laughing at all their jokes about bus drivers that I've never heard of, you know. And then they go, right, we want you to wear this. I was like, oh no, you know, I'd heard about this and all the blood sapped out of my body. I was like, oh no. And when I sort of said, hey, do I really have to? Billy Gould went, we don't care if it's a monkey at the back waving his arms around. And of course, I think that's what they wanted. They wanted some truck driver wearing Puffy's mask to kind of take the piss out of Puffy.
Yes.
But of course, for me, you know, a young boy from, you know, grown up in Britain, the only thing we've got for music in 1980s is Top of the Blooming Pops.
Yeah.
I was like, this is it. You know, here we go. I've got to be it. You know, dyed my hair pink for specially, you know, all that stuff. And the record company girls were like, oh, look, probably just knock it off after half of the song. I was like, okay. And literally Mike Patton gives it to me. And as you know, Ashes to Ashes, there's 4 riffs. First riff on its own, and then the drums kick on a 4th riff. So he gives it to me and he goes, make this work. You know, Mike Patton, serious, make this work. So rolling cameras, the big camera crane comes over. Spice Girls are over there on another podium. The wild, the sexy, Faith No More. I mean, you couldn't have got a bigger Top of the Pops. Yeah. Spice Girls at the peak of their fame. Wet, wet, wet. I shared a sandwich with Marty Pello. They all came in over as balls. And I had all the rider with Faith No More. And I was like, hey. And he's like, oh, man, can you give me a bit of that? You know, absolutely brilliant. Hanson turned up. I ended up roadieing Hanson's drum kit because it was twice the size of that little kid. And they were just clutching Dr. Pepper. And I was like, all right. And they were like, I think I scared them, you know. Sarah Brightman was in it. George Michael did a secret appearance. I mean, it was huge, brilliant, and Faith No More. And so make this work. So first riff, I put the mask on. And for everyone at home, this is the absolute 100% truth. Everyone thinks, you rigged it. You pulled it off. You said, screw Faith No More. This is exactly what happened. Mask on. Second riff, 1 knot pops out. It's like what 1 knot is made by you know, whoever made it. I'm thankful, but they were an idiot. And it literally just fell slowly onto my snare drum. Third riff, everything goes into slow motion for me. And I'm going, my mind's going a million mile an hour. I'm going, shit, I'm going to get screwed by Mike Patton. You know, I reckon I've got just enough time to pull the mask up, put the piece of shit elastic through, tie another knot, and do it. And then at the end of that third riff, I went, fuck it. And I just grabbed the mask and I skimmed it off. And I don't know where it is. And I really wish I'd have gone and got it because that would have been a brilliant trophy. As it is, I've got the piece of elastic somewhere. I frame it, put it in my studio. and then it's boom, boom, bat, and we're in. So then we rock. And if you watch the thing on YouTube, you just type in Robin Guy, Ashes to Ashes, Faith No More, whatever. And you watch it, you realize that all of Faith No More are not looking at me, obviously. They're performing to the cameras. So they're blissfully ignorant about Robin, Mike, Borden, Puffy, Mars. So Mike's gone, make this work. And then they're singing to the front. Behind me is me going, look, it's me, And so the first time Mike realizes this is after the first solo, first chorus, whatever, and he's got a plastic beaker of champagne. And he turns around and he takes a sip and he goes to put it down on a drum riser. And that's when he clocks me, Robin Guy, not Mike Borden, Mars. And he thinks, obviously, I've gone, make this work. Yeah, sure, Mike. Screw you. He doesn't realize what's happened. So he puts his beaker down, and as he brings his hand up, he flips me the bird. So I'm shocked. I nearly screw up all the beats, and I'm shrugging. And of course, I've got deafening monitor playback, and it's screaming. And I'm trying to explain to Mike over this playback while remembering the beats and not losing my mind. I'm going, the mast fell off, Mike. It was badly made, And he's like having none of it. So he turns around. And then there's a solo or whatever. And then it gets to the bit where we'll start screaming. And so everyone's really rocking and I'm slamming. And by this point, I'd like to think we're gelling as a band. And then he turns around, and this is the cool bit. He goes, and he gives me the wink. I was like, right on. Now, that could be translated as, nice one, son. You're kicking ass on the drums. Or I like to think of it as like, yeah, you're a rebel. You fucked us. I like that. You know what I mean?
Oh my God, what a story.
I'll never know. So we finish, and Billy Gould's going crazy at this point, going, what the freak, man? I'm going to get some freaking gaffer tape to freaking gaffer tape your freaking mask to your freaking face. And I'm shitting myself going, sorry, it fell off. And then there's a bad moment. There's a bad atmosphere. We're sitting there like no one's talking to each other. A couple of minutes later, the longest couple of minutes of my life. And then this girl with a walkie-talkie comes down, Faith No More. Yep, you're good to go. And they vanished, all of the band, gone. And I'm like, so what happened is basically they relay the footage they've just done to another camera crew, edit team. And if there's anything bad that they need to re-edit, they call you back and reshoot it.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, is that in there for kids' TV? They're going to 100% call us back. Billy Gould's going to freaking find some freaking gaffer tape and freaking gaffer tape it to my freaking face, exactly like he said. And we wouldn't be having this conversation because you'd be saying, what was it like playing with a boarded mask like that? And I'll be like, it was nice, thank you. Next question. And they went. So I was like, oh my God, holy shit, I've done it. It's going to go out tomorrow on Top of the Pops with me. So I ran back to the dressing room thinking I'm going to pop a beer. And I ransacked the dressing room because obviously I was a young boy, never having seen a huge dressing room full of champagne and cold cuts and everything. And I'm trying to get all this in my bag. And I found Billy Gould's passport.
Oh.
So I'm thinking, you're nuts, my hand, son. So I thought quickly and I grabbed the passport, ran down to the green room. Mike Patton's having a beer with John Hudson, the guitarist, and he did the old nod, and I went, Mike, I think your bass player reamed me a new asshole with his words. I think he owes me, don't you think? And he grabbed the passport, he just looked at it and went, yeah. And it was that sort of like, yeah, what a wanker. You're all right, son. He said, he owes me, man. And that was it,
What a moment in history. I mean, didn't it make the top 10 bands that ruined Top of the Pops or something along those
brilliant
lines?
The way it was written was absolutely brilliant for clickbait because it was like, yeah, Robin Guy single-handedly ruined Faith No More's performance, which I didn't, but the way the guy wrote it was like, yeah, he did, Robin for Rachel Stamp screwed their whole performance. I'll take it, but a lot of people were like, oh, you're an asshole, you ruined their performance. I was like, look, this is what happened straight up, man. But the thing is, about a year or so later, I was at a skate festival in Finsbury Park, and Billy Gould, who was running his record label Cool Arrow with a K, and he was there, and we looked at each other across the bar, and he was like, I know you. I was like, yeah, man, you chawed me out. I did the drums at Top of the Pops. So he's like, I'm really sorry about that. Let me buy you a beer. And he bought me a beer, and
he
gave me his email address and his record company, and sweet. It was all cool in the end. A lovely story. It all went right in the end. So that's it. And then I went on the Davina McCall show to tell her that what I talked to you about. And so I got, double bubble. I got the fame and the fortune. And then I got Rachel Stamp on to play the outro credits. So, I mean, again, if there's one, word of advice to anyone in this crazy music business trying to get ahead or trying to do anything, it's literally very simple. It's just do shit, do stuff. Because, my motto is if do stuff, stuff will happen. And if you don't do stuff, nothing will happen. So just go and do stuff and don't worry about making mistakes or making a fool of yourself or getting flipped the bird by the singer of fame.
You know what, mate? That is the perfect place to wrap it up. That is the do stuff.
Drink some Assam tea to that.
Yeah, that looks like a kettle. Do you know what an amazing? I don't know how long we've been talking for nearly an hour and a half, and it's gone by in about. No, it's a good thing. It feels like 5 minutes.
Stories, as you know, mate. There's too many blooming stories.
Well, we'll have to do a part 2 at some point then, and see what else we can dig up.
Sure.
Look, I know you're a busy man because as you've said, a little while ago, your fortnight is 8 days. Time is precious, and I really appreciate that you've given some of your precious time to me. So it's really kind of you, mate, and it's appreciated.
Man, it's been a pleasure. Like it's always like being grilled with a fellow rock and roller. Especially someone who's lent me a Steve Gadd snare in Rill.
Oh, that's probably
in 2010, 11.
Don't remember.
Something like that, man.
But there we go. Well, look, hey, mate, honestly, enjoy your evening, and all the best of luck with whatever you've got coming up. I'm sure there's plenty of gigs coming up.
Who knows what's coming up? That's the whole point. We got Sham 69 gigs. We got some Fiascos recording. We've got Rachel Stamp stuff. And doing folk projects with the Bram Stampers. You never know, the phone might ring, the email might go. That's what's good. I'd like do some more clinics, whatever. Do some talking, inspire some people, do some online stuff. But watch this space, and I'll get out to everyone via my kit in here, and we'll get some online recording. That's anyone wants some cool recording, hit me up via Matty's my agent now.
Robin, you're a gentleman, and it's appreciated, mate. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. See you soon.
Thanks, man.
Take care, mate. Bye-bye.